Hey everyone, welcome back. Well, there's been a few changes around here. The first change, as I'm sure you guys have probably guessed by now, is the Super M idea. We did go out and look at it again, and we came home with it. So now I've got to work on getting everything switched over from the M to the Super M, and put the M on the market. I'd like to keep the M, but I just don't think that's going to be feasible. So there's that side of the project. And the other side is Brigham. If you remember Brigham, he's the one with the 1950 John Deere A that we called Time Bomb because of the heavy amount of work the engine needed. It was essentially an internal catastrophe. But he got a call from a friend of his brother's, or a co-worker of his brother, and that gentleman had an Alice WD with a loader on it and didn't have a use for it anymore. And he asked Brigham if he would be interested in it, and of course we said yes, of course. And I guess you could say we went and got it. But the price was too hard to pass up because it was essentially donated to our collection here. So this is another addition to Brigham's fleet. He's going to be keeping it here for a little while. He's got another house he's working on purchasing, so when that finally goes through, this will be going to him. And Domino is actually going to take the loader off of this one, because this is the same loader he's got on his B, but he wanted to make a snow bucket for his B, because the manure fork, or the manure bucket on his, he wanted to use just the bucket with the tines, or the manure bucket, and take the snow extension off for brush, because the tines would work good to scoop up brush. So he's going to take this and possibly even make his loader into a hydraulic dump using maybe some parts and pieces from this one. So, but without further ado, here's the Super M parked next to the M. So we're going to get this fired up and the M, get it in front of the garage, and start changing some things over. I know I want to change the throttle out. I'll probably put the spare sawtooth throttle I got back on the M, because that one's in really good shape, and then I'll take the friction throttle and put it on the Super M. And I think the wheels and tires on the rear we're going to change out, because the M's got 15.5s and the tread is a little bit better on them, so we'll switch those out. And the rear weights I want to get pulled off the M, because I've got, you know, some money into those, so I'm going to keep those for the loader work with the Super M. And the Super M has a set of weights, but I think I'm going to put one set of weights on the H that are on the M, and then I'll put the other two sets on the Super M. So let's get everything fired up here, and we'll get it in front of the garage. I'll get my tools organized and we'll get to work. All right? Actually, yeah, I'll be right back. Alright, so when I went and picked this thing up, I did top off all the fluids in it. The transmission was about, well, probably about 2 to 3 gallons low, so I put 2 in it, and it still wasn't quite enough, but it was close. But I did that. I topped off the coolant. I topped off the engine oil, which was about half a quart or so low, and fired right up, no issues, and drove it home. Drove it about 16 miles home, so it took me a good hour to drive it home. But I did have an issue with the right brake. It did hang up on me, but I think it was probably stuck from sitting once I once I applied it that first time, because I had a lot of rusty dust coming out of there, and I ended up getting it freed up there on the side of the road. But everything turned out okay. Got it home, and I adjusted the clutch a little bit, and that's working a lot better. And then I adjusted the idle mixture and idle speed, and runs like a Swiss watch. This thing runs beautifully. So let's go ahead and start it up, and you guys can see what I'm talking about. There you go. Can't argue with that. This thing does have a distributor ignition on it, and it's got a 12-volt generator. So it is 12 volt, but eventually I'll switch it over to an alternator ignition, and if Rudy can talk me into it, maybe we can do a little trade for some labor or something. Maybe switch the distributor and coil for a magneto from Rudy, just because I really like that magneto ignition, because it's isolated unit. You know, if you have a problem with your ignition, you know it's the magneto. It's not a broken wire somewhere or anything like that. So, but anyways, let's get this up in front of the garage, and we'll fire up the M and get that up there too. Lost some fluid here. Well, let's see. We might have to do a little more clutch work on her. That's grinding pretty rough. Probably have to check the transmission fluid level again to see where we're at. Runs very smooth though, very smooth. right back up in a while. I'll just turn the ignition off, and then we'll go get the M. Already got this side up in the air, so let's pull that wheel off, and then I'll get one of the two sides up in the air on this tractor, and we'll go from there. Give me a second to get this one up in the air. 204 switched. All right, I'll do the other ones off camera since you guys know what it looks like now. But essentially, you just pull all these nuts off, 6 nuts all the way around. These clamps will pull off, and the interior clamps will stay, and you can just take the wheel off from the outside, and it just, you do this, hopefully make sure you're not doing this by yourself when you got wheels that are filled with fluid. Mine are not filled with fluid, so. But when you're doing this, be very careful, because if you drop one of these on you, it's going to be very difficult to pick back up, so be very careful. All right, we'll get the other side done and keep moving. Okay guys, well, we've got the tires switched out, and as you can see, I also moved the tractors from, I switched them in place because I wanted to take the loader off on the driveway so it's on the solid surface, and I didn't want to put it on my wife's side of the garage, because if I don't get it back on today, I want her to be able to pull in and out of the garage. So let's fire up the M and back it out. This will be the first time it hasn't had the loader on it since we got it running. So let's back it out. Actually, I'll set you up over here. How about that? You'll have to excuse the extra noise in the background. They got the mosquito control going. Well, there we have it. Here's the loader in its entirety, for the most part anyways, except for a couple of brackets, but it's off. Now we just got to get the Super M installed, but I wanted to make sure she could get in and out of the garage, because I might have to go and get a couple of fittings for this tractor. I'm not sure yet. We'll have to see, depending on how I decide to mount this thing. I'm thinking I could come off of this port here, since it's teed, or I could use this port on the bottom because it's got a left and a right. But this inner one would be pretty difficult to get to, but I'm going to try. So we'll see how it goes here. I'm not sure even if the hoses I got are the same size or not. So actually I'm pretty sure they're a bigger hose, which means I'll either have to get fittings to go up to that size hose or get new hoses, but it'd probably be cheaper to get fittings. So I also think I figured out the issue with the clutch and everything. When I topped the fluids off, it was about, oh, I should probably mention, this is your transmission fluid check level plug here. So if you open this, you should be getting fluid dripping out of here if it's up to the correct level. And your fill, your transmission fill, is this big square plug right here. So just just so you know. But I think the issue is, obviously we've got a leak, and I think it's that input shaft that's leaking inside the tranny here. But it's a pretty significant drip, as you can see, and that's probably what's causing a lot of the issue with the clutch, because when the fluid's low, it doesn't cause any drag on that input shaft inside the transmission, and it'll just sit there and spin like freewheeling in the bearings. So I think that's probably part of our problem, but we won't know until, you know, I pull this casting off. This is actually just a cover and a bracket for your cultivators, but I'll pull this casting off and look underneath there, and we'll go from there. But I'm guessing because of all the fluid coming out of here, that's a big part of our problem. So anyways, I guess we'll pull the Super M forward into the loader. I should probably open that belly pan up and look in there before I do that, though. Let's get some tools ready, and I'll pull that belly pan off, and we'll go from there. All right. Okay. Well, we're definitely leaking. As you can see, this whole area right here is wet, full of oil, and in order to replace that seal, I believe I got to pull the clutch pedal shaft that comes in from the side here, disconnect this, and then I would have to pull the shaft, I believe, from the right side, or the distributor side. Pull the shaft out this side, and remove the throwout bearing and the connecting yoke. And then I believe I pull this cap off, and the seal is inside that cap. So not a huge job to do, but that's probably a big part of our issue. Obviously we got a very significant leak because it's very wet in here, so we'll probably have to fix that in short order. But at least we know what's causing it, and I'd be willing to bet the M probably needs that replaced too. So, and to remove this belly pan, it's just a simple, there's just 4 bolts here around the perimeter of it, so pretty simple to take it off. Not very heavy. It is cast iron, but it's not a very heavy piece. It's probably about 20 pounds or so, but that's where we're sitting with that. So, and I'd be guessing that this hole here is probably where we're going to be able to grease the pilot bearing from. So I should maybe do that since I'm down here. But it's kind of hard to do by yourself because you got to turn the motor over, and I don't know if I can turn it with just grabbing the clutch with one hand or not. So be pretty tough to do. But there are, I believe, some of these marks on the crankshaft pulley here. There's a few marks, and I believe one of them is for the pilot bearing grease circ. So why don't I just, that's not going to work. Let me try rolling it over by hand here, and we'll see if I can't find it. Alright, well, I got to run and get some fittings, but I'm going to pull the Super M into the loader here, and then we'll run up to probably Tractor Supply, or well, probably Tractor Supply. Well, just got to take some final measurements and we'll be good. Hey guys, well, it's the next day. Things got a little hectic last night, so I didn't really get much finished up on it yesterday, but this morning here I just been bolting the loader together, and I'm just going to walk through and show you the attachment points. First things first, the braces that go down to your frame rails are just attached with one bolt, and then these are a tension rod that adjusts the tension between this brace and the bottom support where the cylinder is. So that's how those attach. And then it's just a bracket here, a piece of angle, and a bracket here. So there's 2 bolts and 2 nuts on the other side of that, and it just clamps to the axle. So that's how that is mounted. And then there's a bottom brace that goes across from upright to upright that prevents the bottom from really tipping in and out. So that's that. And this is just the other side. I did have to, let me show you how I did the plumbing on this. I used this T on the top port because I couldn't get this square plug out. If I had a square plug socket, I probably would have been able to get it out, but I don't want to strip it. So I just gave up on it and used this T that was already here. But I put in a 90-degree elbow. This is running over to my right cylinder. And then, let me show you here. This one here runs down to my bottom cylinder. And my hose was a little short, so I had to put a 45-degree elbow on that just to make it work. It's a lot cheaper to buy an elbow than it is to buy a new hose, so I think it was about probably $4 for all the fittings, you know, the black pipe and elbows I bought, versus, you know, $30 or $40 for a new hose. So that's what I did there. I also was trying to find quick connects for 3/4 hydraulic hose, but I couldn't find any at Tractor Supply or Fleet Farm, so I might have to go to a hydraulic shop to get a quick disconnect, so that my overflow tank, every time I take it off now, I have to drain it. If I had a quick disconnect, I could just disconnect it just like a loader cylinder, like this, and I wouldn't have to worry about it having to be drained. So if anybody knows where I can find one, that would be great, but otherwise I'm just going to look online and maybe stop at a hydraulic shop near me to see if I can't find one. But let's find out if the hydraulic pump works, because now that the loader's all bolted up and it's full of fluid, it'd be nice to know if it actually works. So let's see. I haven't transferred the weights yet, just because I'm still on the fence. I don't really know what I want to do. I've gone through all this work now on it already, and I'm still kind of undecided as to whether or not I want to keep it. So I did put a new muffler on it though, because the other one was pretty much rotted off on the bottom. And I've also noticed that this manifold pipe is kind of loose, so at some point that's going to have to be taken care of as well. But let's fire it up and we'll see if the loader works. The hydraulic pump should bleed itself. It's a vented system, so it should just bleed itself with cycling of the hydraulic lever. works. The only thing that concerns me is the hydraulic pump buzzes as I use it. Let me see if I can get it on camera here. You guys can hear the buzzing or not. Maybe it just needs to be used a bit, but I would assume that buzzing isn't normal. So I don't know. We'll see. I'll have to make a determination. Worst case scenario is I can always take everything back off of it and resell it, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. Let me I gotta tighten up that upper control rod bracket, and then because it seems to be, this rod needs to be adjusted down because it creeps at the current position, so it's got to be held back further in order for it to, probably about a ½ inch or so, for it to stop creeping down. So let me adjust that quick, and we'll go from there. Okay, we've got everything back together. I did just run a die over the threads on this, put some new nuts on the adjustment portion of it, and we got it set correctly so it doesn't creep down on us. I also put just a new bolt. It looks like somebody modified this bracket here, but it works well for what it is, so put a new bolt in there. So let's see what we got going here. See if I can figure out where I want to stick this. It's probably not a good spot. I think this will work pretty good. Well, the pump isn't making any noise, so there must have been some air in the system. likes to hang up if I press on it too hard, so. Still kind of undecided. I don't know, the nostalgia of the Farmall M that I did, you know, I'm really deep into that one, so it's gonna make it tough to sell it, but that's kind of the agreement we came to, so. Well, let's go park this one in the back for now, and then I have to pull all the weights off the M at some point, so we'll see what happens. Okay guys, well, let's fire up the M and we'll get it parked, and I'll probably take a few pictures and put it on a few sites for sale, but I don't know, we'll see. If I get any bites, then we'll see what happens, but right now I'm still undecided, so. what I'll do is I'll put the M up for sale, and we'll see what happens over the next month here, and I'll make a decision from there. But right now I'm torn because I got so much labor and love into this M that I don't know, I hate to see it go. So we'll see if we get any bites. I'm not gonna give it away, you know. I'm not gonna let it go for any less than I paid for that Super M, that's for sure. So not with how much money I got into the motor. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So on a more serious note, I went and visited my, one moment. Okay, on a more serious note, we went and visited my coworker John in the hospital, and it sounds like he's got stage 3, maybe early stage 4 lung cancer. So the good news is his body had rid itself of the tumor, but not before it could spread to other areas. So right now he is currently in the ICU, and it's been a tough battle the last 10 days. So thoughts and prayers for him would be great from everybody. I sure appreciate it, and I know he will. But that's kind of where John's sitting, and I appreciate everybody's support for that. But anyhow, that's going to do it for this video, and let's see what happens, you know. See if we get any bites. Thanks for watching, and thanks for wrenching with me.